Anthony, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. I actually just have to make sure I'm actually recording because that would be the
Yeah,
worst if we started and it wasn't.
these things have happened.
I'm really excited to have you on.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, the first time we met was probably, what is it, 6 months ago now?
That's crazy. Yeah, I guess so. It would have been summertime.
And we've had lots of ventures and um, we went for coffee the first time and we sat there for what, 2.5 hours and just talked about
Ooh,
big
it was
picture
edging
stuff.
on 3 hours. Yeah, it was yeah, that was great. I think I felt like everything happened quick. It was like a quick visit at your house, and then it just never slowed down after.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Um, so those of you who don't know Anthony, he is a videographer. Is that the correct term?
I would say so. I make videos. I don't
That's kind of something you might do on the side. Storyteller, vision director, bouldering enthusiast, which what is bouldering?
know. Indoor rock climbing.
And would you say enthusiast or like, is there a different definition?
I'm not sure. I haven't competed before, but that is on the list to do one day.
And climbing outside this next summer, correct?
Correct.
Cool. Anthony is also a giver of knowledge and his expertise, a mentor, and just great guy. So we're with this podcast, what we want to do is tell stories because
Mhm.
we know the stories are very impactful, and you know that you're very into that with obviously what you do for. Would you call it a profession, or what would be your definition of what you do? So tell us what you do.
Um, the definition of what I would do is I would say filmmaking is my vehicle. And the thing that I was trying to build in the beginning that is seemingly working for a few years now is that I wanted to allow filmmaking to allow me to see the world. And seeing the world is important to me because I like to hear stories and I like to tell stories and I like to collect stories.
Yeah. So how has that changed for you with not being able to travel as much, or if at all?
It's a shift in perspective. I feel like with any kind of crisis, I don't even feel like I should use that word because it doesn't feel like crisis to me, but it is depending on who you are. But you just gotta shift your perspective. And I was afraid that I was gonna kind of crumble and fold up, not being able to go anywhere with the gates closed around the border and stuff like that. But stories are everywhere, right? Just
Yep.
because you're not going on an airplane and in a foreign country doesn't mean there aren't people that have great stories to tell you, right?
Oh, for sure. And you told me that this is the first time you've been in Canada and got to see the Rockies in a long time in the winter.
First time in 5 years, which is when I set out on this journey. Yeah.
That's fantastic. So, like I was saying, we want to tell stories, and we've created a health and fitness flywheel for a greater purpose. And one of the aspects is purpose. And your story has that all over it, like a sudden shift in what you're doing, what you're pursuing, and just going fully into that. So I'm going to actually just let you tell the story how you want, what shifted that mindset, where it all started.
Sure. Yeah. It's funny to even think that it fits under that category because how it began certainly did not feel like that at the beginning. It felt like a boat lost at sea kind of thing.
Hmm.
And I don't think that I'm necessarily not that anymore. I just feel like I have a direction in which I'm sailing. But yeah, so we're both from Camrose, and I mean, if anyone knows Camrose, it's a very sleepy little town, right? It's not very many things going on around here and stuff. So I spent all my years in school here, and I grew up kind of just like a dreamer, a fantasizing, like sitting in the classroom looking out the window kind of kid. And I always wanted big things for my life, and I was quickly met with reality when I graduated from high school, and life did not go the way I planned. I thought that I was going to be this genius programmer guy on the computer, and I thought I was just going to be like this this tech, technology prodigy type thing. And I quickly dropped out of IT school, and I didn't like it because it was very introverted. So I switched to something more social. So I switched to business, and I fell in love with the markets there. I learned about the stock market. There was this class called stock simulation where you compete against your classmates. You get $100,000 fake money to
Mhm.
enter the real markets for one semester, and whoever has the highest return at the end of the semester does pretty well. and I topped my class. And after that, I was just head over heels with investments and analysis and all these things. And then there's this guy that I met that heard about this and wanted to kind of mentor me. So for 2 years, we built this investment company together. And uh, around the 2 year mark, just under the 2 year mark, he was my partner, but he was like a lot older. He's been in the business for 20 years, so he was around his 50s. And one day he just had a heart attack and he just kind of dropped and died.
Mm.
And I had to make a big, really hard decision to continue on with this venture without him, or kind of close the book and see what else is out there. And it was really hard because I was really invested into this, and I was really enjoying it, and felt like a lot of boxes were being checked. And so I decided to liquidate everything and leave the investment game. And there was a few months there where I was in cameras. This is 2015. I had just got out of a long term. I didn't need to work. I didn't really have any strings. And sometimes I wish that my story began here and it was really inspiring. And I was like, let's go see what's in the world. But I didn't. I stayed in cameras and I partied and I got intoxicated like night after night. I just did nothing. Every day for weeks and months, I did nothing. And then it was January of 2016. That's where it kind of all clicked. I was out with my friends. It was late night and I was just sitting in a bar, and I just had a moment of, I don't know what you would call it, or anyone would call it. It just felt like the world paused for a second. And I kind of just had like a moment to reflect. And when I kind of snapped back to it, everything became very scary, very real, and kind of felt like anxious. So I don't know what was going on, but I just kind of got up and I left. Well, I paid my bill and I left. I'm not one of those people.
Just
So yeah, I paid my bill and then I left. And then I walked home in a very cold January winter. And I don't know what happened that night, but 3 days later, I landed in New Zealand by myself. I had bought a one-way ticket.
you say a few
And
days later.
3 days later, January 26th, I left the bar. January 29th, I landed in Auckland, New Zealand. And that was the first time I've ever gone out into the world by myself. I've never got on an overseas airplane. I've never traveled. I've never done anything by myself. I was very afraid of everything. And I need to triple underline that because I come from a household where I was kind of like, there's like fear was instilled in me because my mom's kind of like Vietnamese from old Vietnam, and she came over during the war, and she's just very afraid of everything. So she kind of put that into me without even realizing. And I was just a very insecure, self-loathing, like I had no direction sort of thing. So it was very scary to step out into the world by myself, and I didn't really have a plan. See, it didn't feel like I was going out and looking for my purpose. It didn't feel like I was going to do anything intentional whatsoever. But the only thing I wanted to do was to see what I was made of. The only thing I wanted to figure out was this, like, I'm not going to say it was like a dramatic, like, this is life or death, but it felt like I have nothing to lose. And so let's just go out there and see how it plays out.
Mm.
And it was kind of crazy how it played out. I mean, there's no short way to tell the next part of this story, because I feel like I've never even finished it with you and it's been like 6 months. But what I ended up doing for the next 5 weeks in New Zealand was I booked like 30 days of consecutive adrenaline activities
30 days.
on this tour. I went on this tour where there was people 18 to 35 years old, and it was a hop on, hop off bus system. So you didn't really have to commit to a location or anything like that. It was perfect for the kind of travel I wanted to do because I had no answers or no decisions made. I was very ambiguous about stuff. So I went on this tour and I just scared the living daylights out of myself. I booked this tour with this girl named Gaby, who was like my travel agent in the shop, and she gave me all these pamphlets for the activities that I booked, and it was terrifying. It's like bungee jumping, skydiving, blackwater rafting, whitewater rafting, uh, just like everything in the sky and in the ocean and everything in between. It was just terrifying. And I almost walked back into the shop to return the pamphlets and ask for a refund because I walked out. I was so scared, but I didn't, thankfully. And I just got on that tour bus the next morning, and I was really scared because aside from all the adrenaline things that I'm scared of, like all the heights and all the physical, tangible things that a person can be scared of, the most I was scared about was meeting people. I had like social anxiety, not like traditional social anxiety. I would describe it as growing up in Camrose. You know everybody. You go to school with everyone from a young grade, and you don't really have to make new friends. They kind of come to you, or you grow up with them and stuff like that. You don't have to go out in the world and tap people on the shoulder and figure out if they like you or not. So
Yeah.
this is my first time at like 24 years old figuring out if people are gonna like me because I'm alone and I can be whoever I want, or I have no pressures. So I got on this tour bus that morning and I was lucky. I hit the ground running. This guy sat beside me. His name was Christian. He was from Sweden, and he was like this like 6 foot tall, lanky, looked like Tarzan, long brown locks, uh, lean build, and he just sat down and he just looked at me. He's just like, "Hey, I'm Christian," and we just like became really good friends from that very first second. And um, from that moment, we kind of like had really good chemistry. We just like we spoke the same way. We had the same sense of humor and stuff. So that I think when you're on a bus full of strangers and you hear that and you see that, other people kind of gravitate towards that. So other people wanted to kind of join in on this social circle, and next thing you know, I just have a bunch of strange friends from all over the world traveling around with me, and it was it was overwhelming because during the days I was meeting people, I was socializing, I was learning about other people's cultures. I've never heard different accents. I didn't know what a Danish person was. You know what I mean? Like I was learning so much about the world. It was like I didn't know anything about cultures or geography or anything. So it came in abundance and it was overwhelming. And then during the evenings, I was doing adrenaline activities. I was
Mm.
jumping out of airplanes and swimming in the ocean and kayaking and rafting and all these things. And then you do that enough times, you're getting stimulated so overwhelmingly compared to your slow lifestyle and cameras. Um, it changes a person. 30 days of that. It like I there's no other way to put it, but it felt like I was just kind of born again. I saw the world with different eyes. I had this fire in my belly, and I just had like, well, you and I joke about it. We have Matt moments, but like it was like there was just like tiny blissful joy in the things that I never saw before that were always before me. You know what I mean? Just how the sun sets, or
Mm.
how the light hits a wall, or just how good your coffee smells. Things just felt like life again, and I never had that for very long time, it seems. I won't say my whole life, but it felt like a very long time. And the scary part was I had to make a decision after New Zealand if I was going to go back to Camrose and just continue life, or what happened. You know what I mean? What happens after that kind of experience, right? So that's kind of how the story began. And that that has nothing to do with photo and video yet because that comes later. But um, yeah, if there was anything you wanted to kind of interject on New Zealand or that part of the story.
What was the scariest thing? You mentioned that like there's a bunch of like you were fearful and like obviously
Yeah.
30 days of adrenaline. There must be one thing that stuck on your mind that was like the most challenging thing for you
Mm.
in this in sense of being scared.
Like, are you asking what's the scariest out of all the activities I did?
Yeah, let's say that.
Yeah. So I think traditionally everyone associates the scariest thing is skydiving because it's the highest, and you're there's a lot of crazy things. You're jumping out of a perfectly good airplane, and there's just like,
It's
you know
just
what I mean? The
getting
common
out
sense
the
just goes
back.
literally out the window. But you would quickly find out, anyone who's skydived before would know this. It quickly goes from not even like a hairline second of fear versus like 20 minutes of blissful joy. Like the fear is not really there. It's just like all in your mind. It's so enjoyable because you're not actually like falling. You're kind of like getting propelled up by the air in this atmosphere, and you just get to see the earth in the most beautiful way. So I wouldn't describe that even
Way
as
of thinking
scary.
about it. You're getting propelled up by the air. You're not actually falling.
Yeah, it doesn't actually feel like I mean, you're falling, yes, but like it doesn't feel like you're dropping like a rock in the sky, right? It feels like it looks like those people in those wind tunnels. That's how. Well, I mean, that's literally what it is, I guess. But
Except the ground's
bungee,
coming towards you. Yeah.
yeah, yep. I mean, perspective, yeah.
Yeah.
So, but bungee jumping, that was the one. That was the scariest one. I describe it as a skydiving. You have to do it tandem the first time. You have to be attached to a tandem master, and they walk you through it all of it. They would never let any person off the street just jump out of an airplane by themselves. So, bungee jumping is terrifying because you're harnessed at your feet or your waist, depending on where you are, and you walk out on this ledge and nobody pushes you off. No one tells you to do anything. So basically, you kind of have to have this like almost suicidal mentality where you're standing on there and you have to take yourself off the ledge. You have to take the leap. It's no one else will do it for you, right? It's terrifying because when you're harnessed, it doesn't even feel like you're wearing anything around your feet. It looks like you're just standing on a plank of
Right.
wood above the earth, like 200 meters or whatever. Okay, not 200 meters. That's really far. Mine was 134 meters.
I was
But
just like, yeah, 100%, 200 meters. I don't even know what
yeah,
that.
yeah, it's far. Mine was 8 seconds of free fall, which is a really long time to scream and then gather your breath and then continue screaming on the. You know what I mean? Like that's a really long way to fall. So, but the cool thing about skydiving for me, even though it wasn't the scariest, I assigned it as the scariest thing. I had like this book I wrote in every day when I was traveling, and I had like a lot of things about myself I didn't like, a lot of demons and a lot of things I wouldn't give myself forgiveness about. So I wrote it all down on a piece of paper, and I said that if I can skydive and I complete it, once I touch the ground again, all these things get to go away. I get to give myself a clean slate. And I remember touching the ground and it was just like this most overwhelming feeling ever. I felt invincible. I was on top of the world. Any feel like anybody who's skydived before gets this feeling, you know what I mean? Like you just saw the earth from this unique perspective. You felt it, you could hear it. Hopefully you don't taste anything in the sky. Sometimes people like bugs or something will like fly into your face or whatever, but it's like the most beautiful feeling. And then I landed and I was just like, I swear as soon as I touched the soil again, I just was like a whole new person. My mind was just I just never came back down from that high like years and years and years ago, right? So yeah, that was definitely the scariest.
That's, yeah, I know one day you'll probably convince me
Oh, and
or
I'm not gonna convince you. I'm just gonna book it. We're just gonna
yeah.
go.
Well, what is it when we went for the polar plunge? I say like, you guys don't have to do this, but I'm going to do
Oh
it.
yeah, oh yeah, totally. Yeah, and I mean like yeah, that's true. So one thing that these activities do, like skydiving sites and stuff, once they take your money, you can't get a refund. So that's enough reason for most people
Yeah.
to be like, oh, I'm invested,
Yeah.
literally.
I'm ready to go. Um, yeah. So you can continue on from
Sure, yeah. So, I mean, things things never really slowed down after New Zealand. I ended up making the decision to continue to travel to Australia because a lot of travelers from New Zealand go to Australia and Australia go to New Zealand. So, I was just like, I basically continued because it was more of a matter of why not? I was searching so hard for why should I do this? Why should I do that? But I was more like, why can't I go to Australia? I can, so let's go. So, I went to Australia and I had kind of like three chapters to my Australian adventure. It started with the people I came with from New Zealand, but at some point in there, I got reconnected with an old friend that actually used to live in Camrose. You probably know them, the Ward family.
Mm.
Belinda Ward, Tim Ward, Christy Ward. So they used to live in Camrose, but they moved to Australia afterwards. And I had them on Facebook. So I hit up Belinda because she was in my 7th grade. And we just kept in touch throughout the years. And I said, hey, I'm in the neighborhood, if that's not an understatement. And I was like, let's go for coffee. And she ended up building this really elaborate itinerary for me while I was in Australia. And she took me around and she introduced me to her friends, her community, her family, and just gave me a great week in Australia. And that was a different, massive part of the story. Like the first part, New Zealand, that was conquering my fears and figuring out who I was and just getting more comfortable in my skin. The next part, where I was with Belinda and I was in Australia, that was like about like who do I want to surround myself with and what a community and support and encouraging was supposed to feel like, you know what I mean? So putting those two together after New Zealand, Australia, I came back to Camrose and I felt ready this time. I didn't ask myself, should I keep going somewhere? Like I didn't ask, it was like clear cut to me in my mind. I had clarity about it. I'm coming back to Camrose and I'm ready. And that's not because I was ready to start a new life in Camrose, is because I wanted to challenge myself to go back to where it was most difficult and close the chapter on a healthy note rather than trying to feel like I escaped or ran away. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I don't know where I got that wisdom from. I honestly was not the smartest person back then, obviously from all those years of drinking and partying. But this piece of clarity came to me on the flight home to Canada, and I was like, all right, I'm writing down 10 things in my phone, and I'm going to change these 10 things about my lifestyle. And at the end of the summer, I got back in April. At the end of August, I'm going to complete these 10 things, and I'm going to pack up my bag. I'm going to sell everything. I'm going to sell my place, sell my 2 vehicles. I'm going to sell all my belongings, everything, pack everything into one bag. And I'm going to go out into the world and try to live on the road as long as I humanly can, because I like who I am when I'm traveling. I like being faced with hard decisions every day and putting myself in social scenarios that I never would
Right.
otherwise. I just felt like the level of growth was just unmatched in any other area. So I wanted to just be out there. So that's what I did. After summer in Canada, I packed my bags and I set out into the world. And um, yeah, that's kind of where the chapter begins, where I was holding a camera for some of this.
What do you remember the 10 things you wrote down were?
I do. I I would I can't probably riff them off 10 in order, but the big ones were I didn't want to drink anymore.
Hmm.
And that sounded difficult at the time, but it was actually really easy once I became focused on what I wanted to do with myself. Because I felt like after I got my partying out in New Zealand, I felt like partying in New Zealand was different because I had almost like air quotes intention with drinking there. I was meeting new people. It was social. I never got out of control, and the fun was there, and then the alcohol supplemented. What I'm used to is starting my nights with alcohol and then trying to find fun, which is not the way to do it at all.
Hmm.
So I stopped drinking. That was pretty effortless. I wanted to. This is kind of the same thing, but I wanted to party less. I can go to parties and not drink, but I just felt like I wasn't my best self at parties because I was trying to be somebody constantly that I was not. It was exhausting. I'm inherently introverted, but I just want to wear this extroverted hat so badly when I'm at parties, you know. And I wanted to start working out and running, and I was really embarrassed about that because I've always been like the smaller underdog kid growing up. I played basketball my whole life. I've always been a small guy in the team and stuff like that, and just trying to work on my like physical body and stuff like that was intimidating because I didn't have that confidence. And when I play the dialogue back, it sounds so silly, right? Because it's like I'm running around Mirror Lake in cameras. Somebody sees me in town, which they will because it's a small town. What are they gonna say? Oh, Anthony, you're such a loser. You were running. Like, you know what I
He's
mean?
trying
Like,
to better
how
himself.
does that?
How to do that?
Yeah. How does that conversation go? You know what I mean? Like, that's what I was scared of. I was scared of people seeing me work out, and I quickly got over that. I just started. It started with baby steps. You run at 7 in the morning. I'm not a morning person, so it was really hard. I'd go run out at 6 or 7 in the morning at Mirror Lake, and I knew no one, no one that I knew was going to be awake at that point. So I started there, and then I started doing it more around, and then I got myself some weights and stuff, and then I wanted to also wake up early because I just said I'm not a morning person. I am by nature like the laziest person in the world, but which is weird to think about because that's not how I kind of describe myself anymore. But if you give me a chance to sleep like 20 hours, I'll sleep 20 hours straight, kind of thing. And so I wanted to start getting up early in the morning. And then the other ones were nutrition, like trying to eat better, because kind of when you live in the party and drinking scene, you just stuff yourself with terrible things, right? So wanted to actually take care of my mind and my body. And then the other couple ones were creative based. I didn't know how to do stuff yet with my camera, but I had taken footage from my GoPro and my cell phone when I was traveling, and I wanted to like find a way to do something with it. I know what it is now because I make videos and
Right.
I do photos and stuff now. But like back then, I was just like, if there's only a better way to keep my memories documented and stuff like that. So
If they only invented something like that.
yeah, I know, right? And so those are a few things. I can't remember the other ones, but I'm sure they were related to my mind, body, or creativity, though.
That's an awesome list. I mean, that you can remember it. It's probably you can remember it because they were so impactful too, right?
Yeah, and I think I remember it mostly because I was getting responses that um, I predicted. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I stopped showing up to parties and drinking, and everyone's like, "You okay? Like, is something going?" You know what I mean? Like something's wrong with me because I don't want to come to a
Because you don't
party.
want to party, yeah.
And then if I did come to a party and just make an appearance, I wasn't holding like a 24 pack of beers. And they're like, hey, like what's going on with you type thing. And you know what I mean? So I just remember those responses because I predicted them in my head and then they actually came true. But so I ran like dialogues in my head and I ended up just getting really comfortable with the idea that people were just gonna try to analyze or pick us apart or whatever it was. So
How did you
That
handle that? What was the dialogue before?
the dialogue, the self-talk was really important because I have a personality, a mind that has to be fully equipped for like every social scenario. So it's weird because I can tell stories and I can like socialize, but like I'll always go into a room or some social setting at least prepared. I'll have like something in my back pocket prepared, whether it's a question or a topic or something like that. And with this sort of thing, it's kind of strange because the topic is me and they're probably gonna talk about me, but I just wanted to know that I could leave that conversation on a positive note, even if it was the most negative, rude thing in the entire world. I just wanted it to be like that's like I'm sorry, I'm trying something new. Like I thought it'd be fun. You know what I mean? Like I just brush it off. They don't have to understand it. I just wanted to end positively because I spent so many years being negative.
Great to know. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Um.
So then
So so
you picked up
yeah.
your camera.
So then this is where the business and the entrepreneur and the creativity chapter comes in. It comes in very prominent chapters in my life. It feels like because I remember everything by like like flag marks in my bookmarks for these like big giant pillars in my life where I'm just like, was this before New Zealand or after New Zealand? Was this before video or after? You know what I mean? Like it's like that for me. So
Well, the
um
first one was overcoming fear, right?
yep,
And
yep,
finding out who you were. Next one was getting your circle, understanding community. And
yep,
then
correct.
what's the name of this one?
Well, this is technically this could kind of be like purpose, or at least the thing that would I would spend years and so many endless nights to build for myself. This is the empire building stage. This is the finding one block that you enjoy building and then building a castle with it sort of thing. So I found it to have very apparent clues at some point. You know what I mean? When I get a spark of clarity, it kind of just kept trickling. I'm so lucky because it just never stopped when it started. Because I remember before this all started, before New Zealand, all this stuff, the only thing I wanted, like I was screaming to the world, I was just like, give me clarity. Like I just want a second of clarity to figure out what I want to do with my life. Because it's like I was 24 at the time, and I said that I was ambitious coming out of high school at 18, right? So that's 6 years of like dilly daddling where I'm just like, what am I doing with myself? I thought I was gonna be the greatest at something already, and I was quickly humbled that I was good at nothing at 24. And so this part was really exciting because once I had clarity about what I wanted to do, where I wanted to invest my time, everything just became aligned. That like people that weren't a part of the big picture fell off. People that were always there, but I wasn't really close with, but they cared. Like the good people came in, and then time management just became clear. You know what I mean? Like, hey, you want to come to a party? Sorry, I don't got time. I'm trying to make a video right now. Like, I'm trying to get this done because this is what I want to spend my time with. You know what I mean? And I
Yeah.
know if I go out tonight, I'm not going to have a morning tomorrow that's productive. And I also want to like work out. And, you know what I mean? So it's like time management just like became this thing that I wasn't aware of that was really positive in my life. And then um, I was just trying to make as a video for every possible thing at the time, and they were all truly terrible videos. Like I promise you, they were so bad. But the feeling I got for them, I felt like I was putting together like a Christopher Nolan film. I was like, this is like my ticket. Like everything was just like the next best thing for me, and that's
Yeah.
a feeling that I continue to pursue because the only thing that gives me that feeling is doing something new with every single project. It doesn't have to shatter the earth every single time you put something out. It just has to be one step newer, one step better. So with that mindset, again, which I don't know where that clarity came from. I started just making videos for anybody and everybody. Well, keep in mind at this point I was traveling around the world, right? So um, I I made is it a covenant, a promise with myself that I would say yes to everything. I don't know if I ever told you this part of the story. I must have told you this part of the story.
Yes, man.
It Yes, I wanted to become a yes man. Obviously, that was inspired by the film, but I wanted to see how far I could possibly go. You know what I mean? Like we all like watch Walter Mitty and Yes Man and stuff, and it's just like, what if we actually did that? Like, what if we like, what does that actually look like? Where like, how much do you gain? How much do you lose? Like, who gets hurt in the process? You know what I mean? So I was like, all right, I'm gonna do this. My bags are packed. Like, what else am I gonna do? Like,
Yeah.
opportunity comes across my table, I'm gonna take it. Doesn't matter where in the world, what it is. If I feel like it's at the least bit constructive, like just even a fraction constructive, let's do it. So first thing was going back to Australia because my friends who I just told you about, who showed me a good time in Australia, a couple of them were getting engaged and they wanted me to be there because I had grown close with them. So I made a film for their engagement. Well, the proposal, technically, it was a surprise proposal. And then after that Australian trip, they asked me to stick around and make that my base. And I was like, I just got out into the world. I don't know if I'm setting up a base right now, but it was really enticing because they're like, hey, like, I don't know, we like having you around and we feel like we can just encourage you, and we can, and like you, like I, it just felt like a mutually beneficial, like how friendships should be, you know what I mean? They're just like,
Right.
we want you around, like it's nice to have you around. And I was like, okay, I'll stick around for a bit, why not? And Australia is new, like I don't have to keep moving constantly. So I was like, yeah, I'll stick around in Australia for a bit. But I made Australia my base, which didn't, so I was still saying yes to things. So a couple weeks later, this is a funny story, I've never told you this one, I don't think I told anybody this story, but
Hey,
I
please.
was I was messaging someone on Facebook Messenger, and I thought it was my friend, and I was like, hey, um do you want to go to the Grand Canyon and hike with me, because I feel like that's going to be really hard and I want to try it. I was just like at a very grand stage of like in my life where I was just like, I want to do the hardest stuff. So I was like, let's do the Grand Canyon. I'm typing to this friend, hey, do you want to go to the Grand Canyon? Hit send. And then I realized I sent it to the wrong person. But the wrong person said, yeah, sure, why not? And I was like, and this person I was not really friends with, we're acquaintances. And I was like, oh, hmm, sure, why not? I mean, I got myself in this, let's do it, sure. So sure enough, we go to we go to the Grand Canyon. Um, they lived in Victoria Island at that point. So I flew to Victoria Island, and then we both flew out to Vegas, and then we got in a rental car, and they were experienced in hiking. They had stuff, you know what I mean? Like everything, like camping gear, outdoor wear, everything you would possibly need for that sort of trip. They had. I had zero things. I had a backpack with some stuff, but and my worldly experience was like this much, not very much. So I was like, Nevada, Grand Canyon, okay. Nevada's a desert. That's gonna be hot as hell. This is November. Or no, this is like fall time. This is October, November. Oh no, this is October. And I was like, Nevada's gonna be hot, so I'll be fine. My clothes will be fine. We get there, and the days are hot because yes, deserts. That's how they work. No vegetation. Night, freezing. Oh my goodness, like no vegetation on the ground, and it was just like I learned very quickly that it goes from like plus 22 during the day to like minus 15 at night, and it's so, and you're beneath the surface. You're in a canyon. There's wind, and you're beneath the surface. It's freezing. So I did the Grand Canyon trip. Some other friends wanted to go to New Zealand. I said yes there. My friend was getting married in El Salvador, Central America. Yep, let's go. I'll go over there. Went back to Australia. Another group of friends wanted to go to New Zealand again. I was like, yep, meet you there. Flew from Australia. Yeah, flew from Australia. And you know, like it kind of just montaged into this 3-4 month run where I was like, yes, 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 yes. Let's do it all.
Yep.
And in the process, I got to make videos, I got to take photos, I got stories, I met people, I was scaring myself, I was in discomfort every second of every day. And you know, I blinked and I was just like, whoa, life is going really fast right now. Like I didn't have any perspective on it, but I was like, nothing can go wrong with this, you know? Like what's the worst that could happen if life stayed at this speed forever? You know what I mean?
Right.
You already know the answer. I mean,
Like, yeah,
anyone listening.
we probably know.
Yeah, exactly. But that's, I can't even say I mean, without even getting into it, I can't even say I regret living at that pace for so long, because it gave me what I talked about at the very beginning: stories. It gave me creativity. It gave me a social life. It gave me all these boxes, these big boxes that I wanted to get checked off. And um, yeah, I was making videos that were getting better, um, and then the big lottery ticket hit, the the big client, the big first video that kind of just boomed everything into a career, I guess. It started with one of the trips to New Zealand. I was with a friend, and he's very much so like you. He's business savvy. He's got that brain that's like, what if? Like that, like, why don't you think bigger? Why don't you dream larger? Come on, like what if?
Right.
As a person who I was a dreamer and stuff like that, he made me look like a stale like potato chip. Like I was nothing compared to him in terms of dreaming. And we were in New Zealand. He's just, oh, we're going to New Zealand. And he was like, why don't you email New Zealand companies and see if you can make videos for them? And this is 2016. So um, I was like, social media was around, of course, but Instagram was around. It's doing its thing, but not every single person's trying to monetize their life or
Right.
trying to get sponsorships and all these things. So no, and it didn't have video format yet at that time. Or no, it did. It just like it sucked because it was low quality and nobody watched them. And so I was like, what am I gonna offer like companies? Like I just make little silly videos, like these travel videos and stuff. Like he's like, no man, like you got something here. Like you gotta why don't what like it doesn't hurt. Like I don't get why you wouldn't even try. And I was like, no, like, it's probably the tone of rejection coming out of my mouth, right? Like why else would I not? So
Right.
so I was like, I shut him down. I was like, no man, I just don't think it's gonna work. Let's just do our trip. It's gonna be fun, and that's that. Anyways, he walks away from the conversation. He comes back to me what maybe a day later, not even. And he comes to me. I was in the garage at the time, and he's like, I got one. I got us a client. I emailed them on your behalf, and I showed them a couple of your videos, and they said we can have one. We can do a job with them. And I was like, no, you didn't. I was kind of like, we're supposed to scrap this idea. Like, why? I didn't feel betrayed, but I was just like, you slide. Like,
How
that's
dare
the
you?
marking as of a good friend, because that's something that I try to do now, where I
Mhm.
help people build towards their dreams, right? So what he did was he emailed this car company in New Zealand on the South Island and showed them one of my videos, and they agreed to give us a supercar for the day where we could drive it around the mountains of New Zealand for a full day from like morning till night.
What kind of
And
car?
it was, well, they had a garage full of cars, and they're like, what's your pick? And I was like, I would like the Audi R8 because that's my dream car. I was like, I was and I still am the biggest like Iron Man fan. So Tony Stark, he drove an R8.
Yeah.
So they had one sitting there really pretty, just all gray and black and just gorgeous. And I was like, we can take that one. She's like, yep. There was us the keys. Doesn't ask us to sign any papers, nothing. She's like, have it back by 8, please. And we walked out calmly because we wanted to seem professional. Like we did this. This was our thing.
We do
And
this all
then
the time.
yeah, all the time. So there's 4 of us, right? And the girls had the rental car, so they're driving a Toyota Corolla. And then me and Ben, my friend, we hopped in the Audi R8. We drive around the corner, put it in park, and then we just flip. Like we're just like screaming. We're just like, oh my god, like how's this real life? I can't believe she agreed. Like we pulled one over her or something. You know what I mean? Like I was just like, this is at a time where people just weren't doing these things, right? Or
Mhm.
at least it didn't seem popular at the time, anyways. And I was like, I can't believe she gave us an Audi R8. We are in the South Island of New Zealand. Look at like we can go like anywhere. And so like the deliverables based on the terms was like, we'll make you a video and we'll give you some photos. That's it. And then they agreed. So after the excitement wore off, well, it didn't wear off, but like once it like simmered,
Yeah.
I was like, oh shoot, I have to deliver something.
Have to give some
So
value now.
yeah, exactly. You feel the pressure real quick, but this is one of a few great examples in my life where I found out, I learned this about myself. I learn best when I'm in the deep end. I can't learn when it's just safe and there's just like a net under me. I need the stakes to be real high. Like if I didn't deliver on this car thing, it would be the end of like my automotive career, basically. You know what I mean? Like and it's New Zealand, so it's small, so I'm sure everyone talks. So I was just like, the pressure really felt real, and it was great. I felt like I just did my due diligence. I researched a lot of car videos, what we were capable of with the equipment and stuff. And Ben, my friend who set it all up, he's business creative, but he's also got a creative bone in his body as well. So there were shots where I was like, man, how are we gonna get these rolling shots? Like I want some car moving shots, and I don't want to just shoot from the driver window. That's kind of lame and stuff. So he's like, well, why don't we take the Corolla, pop the trunk because it's a hatchback, and you can lay on your stomach in the trunk, and we'll drive in front of the R8, and we'll get like a shot where it looks like you're driving right in front of the car with like one of those expensive rigs. And I was like, you want me to lay on my stomach on the highway holding my camera outside the car? And then I was like, all right, let's do it. And we did it, and the shot looked great and stuff. And we ended up spending a whole day like this. It was so good because it just felt like we all 4 of us just came together on this creative project. And what I was experiencing for the first time was collaboration. You know what I mean? Like I'd
Yeah.
been making videos on my own, but the first time I was just like having that company where people were bouncing ideas. What if we tried this angle? Or what if we did this shot? Or like, oh my goodness, it was just like that feeling where you're with people that are on the same page as you, and everyone's just jiving. And we produced this great little 60-second video, and they loved it. Like, that was the first time I got like this honest feedback from something that I poured my heart and soul into. And the gears just started turning, like, and it never stopped from that point. I was just like, oh my God, it's possible. He showed me that it's possible. If that's, I'm gonna turn on later. I was just like, if Ben's given me any gift at all in my life, he's shown me that things are possible. Like
Yeah.
in that moment. So I didn't just take that experience and I was like, oh, that's great. Like, that was really fun. Let's just stop there. I emailed everybody. I was just like trying to get a job with everyone. Um, and the point of this story was that I took that video and I was pitching to all these brands. And one of the brands that I pitched to was Aston Martin. I was emailing like the biggest companies in the world. I could have emailed like local coffee shops or like, you know what I mean? Like small things, but I emailed Rolex, I emailed Ferrari, Aston Martin, Lamborghini, like all the big guys. And Aston Martin got back to me, and you wouldn't even believe the opportunity they gave a kid like me at the time. Like, it was like my dream on a platter, basically. It was better than I could have dreamed of. It was, they emailed me back and they said, hey, we're unveiling a brand new car to the world, the Vanquish S model 2017, and we need a videographer for the event. And the CEO and the CCO, the creative officer and the executive officer, like the two biggest guys behind this vehicle, they're flying into New Zealand for the very first times in their lives. And this is going to be like a global event. We need a videographer. And do you want to be the head videographer? And I was like, I was reading these words in my email. And at the time I was living at my friend's house in New Zealand. I was in the basement and their ceiling is like really low. Like, it would like hit like your collarbone. Their ceiling's so low.
Right in the throat.
Yeah. So yeah. So when I got the email, I jumped up and I just smashed my head on the ceiling. I was like, oh my goodness. And I ran upstairs and I showed everybody. I was like, look at this email. Aston Martin wants me to do a job. And they're like, what are you talking about? And I was just like, it probably wasn't as clear as what I just said. I was just like fumbling over my words and stuff.
Yeah.
And that was crazy. That whole experience, I could go on a 3-hour tangent about what that job was like and what it taught me and what it did afterwards. But there was,
What was your one takeaway?
one takeaway,
the biggest one?
I will say that the job went really well. I just felt like luck was just in my pocket. I know, it's just like, I just felt like everything that could have gone right was going right, and I was terrified that it was just going to run out at some point. It was just like, I just kept meeting the right people at the right times and shooting the right things, and I felt like I knew nothing, but everything was just happening. And that's probably why it manifested into like a kind of a imposter syndrome. But the biggest thing that happened on that event was at the end of the night. I had packed up my cameras. I got all the shots. The event went really well. I met some awesome people, and I was just leaning against the back wall, sipping a glass of champagne, and just taking it in the night. I was just watching all the people socializing, and I was just like, I can't believe I was a part of this chapter for Aston Martin. What, like, a blessing. And I was just so grateful. And I just realized that this lady was standing really close to me. And when I looked over and I realized she was standing there, we kind of locked eyes, and it would have been weird if I didn't say hi. So I was just like, hi, like, hope you enjoy your evening and stuff like that. And we ended up talking for like 15 minutes. And it's funny because I was just like, I don't know, I was just talking to her. So I was like, by the end of the 15 minutes, I knew who her kids were, what universities they went to and stuff like that. And then I felt bad for taking her time. So I was just like, I'm going to head out for the night and stuff like that. It was really nice to meet you. And before I left, she asked me if I had my card, because she learned that I was the videographer for the night. I was like, oh yeah, I do have a card. It's a terrible card. It's a white piece of paper that says Anthony Doan, basically Comic Sans font. It might as well been. It was the worst business card of all time.
Comic Sans can't be that one.
No, it wasn't, but it was Arial. I feel like it was Arial. Like, it was just one of those basic package fonts.
I like that you know that. Like, I have no clue what the difference is. All I know is Times New Roman. So
yeah. And so I gave her this terrible looking card, and it had no information. It all said my name and videographer. I didn't put anything useful on it. So I handed it to her. She looks at it and she's like, and nicely too. She could have just like smirked and just chucked it away, but she's like, can you write down your email and phone number, please?
Just like simply giving a card with your name. Here you go.
Yeah, basically, you'll find. me. And so I was like, oh yeah, I left that blank because I wanted to write down my number if it, yeah. So anyways, I write down my phone number and email, and then I hand it back to her, and then I just exchanged the same question. I was like, do you have the card? Can I grab a card? I wasn't used to asking people for the card yet because I'm so new to this world. She's like, oh yeah, I have a card here. So she hands me a card. It's embossed with the Aston Martin logo, and it says Global Marketing Director. And I looked at the card, and I didn't react, but I just glanced at it, and I just said, oh, and I just continued the conversation. I was just like, thanks, enjoy the rest of your night. And I walked out to my vehicle, and I was like, what are you doing? You messed it up. You talked to her about her kids. You could have been talking about jobs and figuring out how to get more work and stuff. You blew it, you dummy. And oh my goodness. And I just felt really stupid for a long time about that. And, you know, kind of like 5 months later, it came back around, and an email popped into my inbox, and it's from her. And she said, hey, I don't know if you remember me, but we chatted at the event back in New Zealand, and I was wondering if you wanted to come up for an event. We'd love to have you out for Aston Martin again. And I was like, oh my goodness, she remembers me. But she flew me out for the most extravagant event ever. There was like snow, like it was like supercars on a glacier drifting with helicopters. It was very James Bondish, and it was just like a dream come true. But we got to talk at that event for a little bit, and she said that she remembered me because we talked about her kids.
I was gonna say, I was gonna interject and be like, that's probably why you got it.
Yeah,
You
and that was a
didn't want
very
to.
valuable lesson. That was my biggest takeaway to answer your question. I learned that good business isn't usually business. It's human first usually. It's connection and it's storytelling, you know what I mean? She got to tell a story about her kids, and she probably spent the whole last 2 hours of the evening talking about execs and cars and
Yep.
all these corporate things. And she was just talking. I don't know, I can't speak on her behalf, but I basically built my business model around that. I was just like, let's just try to have fun with this, not take it too seriously, and talk to people, not to try to pry opportunity out of everybody left and right.
Yep. That's a huge lesson that people are important, right? And it's
Yeah, that's
yeah,
why I just felt like I was getting the right lessons really early on from the right people at very valuable stages. This is like things just kept coming up, and I don't know how to describe it. I just feel very lucky and humbled by it, and I'm grateful because life, I mean, like the story might sound long hearing it, but like life felt like 5 minutes from the time I left on that first airplane to New Zealand to my second video for Aston Martin. So much
yeah,
life had happened, but in the time span that we've talked, I've only covered like less than like 6 months of my life. You know what I mean? Like I learned how to do all of that, and I was living on the road, and I met all these people, and seemingly my circle of contacts was nobody from my old life anymore. And um, I was just like, it just blew my mind because I was just like, life happens so quickly. And I used to think that life took like a lot of preparation for change, and for a lot of things had to be in place for a change to happen, but it could just change in an instant, really.
yeah. When people let the stop letting fear dictate their life, it's like it gets expedited, right? Like,
Yeah, no, that was the biggest. I mean, that was the first domino to fall, the fear thing. I mean, I feel like, again, I don't want to make it sound like it was an act of inspiration and bravery. It was more so like I felt like I had nothing left to do with myself, so I wanted to just risk it all. I wanted to put it all on the table and just bet on myself, because if I lose, I lose, and I start at zero again. It doesn't matter. It doesn't hurt me. But if I gain anything, then that's awesome. You know what I mean? It's like my back's against the corner, against the fight against the world and myself. So it felt more like desperation than bravery. You know what I mean? But I don't know.
yeah.
Depending on
Well,
who you,
it sounds like you got clarity on who you were too. And once you get clarity on who you are, you're not as dictated by external factors, right? You
yeah,
know that those obviously those are big successes, milestones.
yeah, yeah,
You
it's
weren't
true.
expecting that to be happy.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, it's insane. And to kind of loop it back to like purpose, and again, none of this felt like the journey for purpose, right? It just kind of came as a result of figuring out what I didn't want to do with myself, or what I wanted to try different things and stuff like that. Like I credit anything that I have today to just trying different things, because it's never been about adding things to my life to find my answers. It's been about stripping things away and having less to see what I actually have, you know?
And it's we've both been listening to a lot of Matthew McConaughey
Of course,
podcasts.
obsessively.
One of his quotes he said on the Story Brand podcast was, "It's a story, or it's a mystery going forward, but when you look back, it's a story." Something to that extent. Like, it makes
Yeah,
sense when you look
yeah,
back. When you look forward, it doesn't. But all you have to do is move. It doesn't mean you're not going to have that fear, but it
it's true.
means that you have a strong why attached to what you're doing. So it's
Yeah,
even in the gym setting. Um, we want to attach people to this why. Like, why do you want to get
yeah.
people up? Um,
Yeah, it's interesting because I found and I learned that when you're kind of narrow focused on figuring out this thing that could be called a why in your life and stuff, when you find out what direction you're going in or what you're kind of honed in on, you kind of pull the same company into your life. You know what I mean? There's other people walking down the street that are focused in their lane, their industry or their niche or their craft or whatever it is, and it just seems like the craziest coincidence, but like those people just seem to find each other. And
mhm.
next, you know what I mean, like I just loved finding company that was so focused on building a life for themselves with that craft or that thing that they were so passionate about. Like would so I wouldn't hesitate for a second to give up sleep to work on a film, you know what I mean? Like I finally found something that I wished that there were more than 24 hours in a day to do. That was
Yep.
the first thing in my entire life I ever experienced that with, was making a film. And I was just like, man, like I just wasted so, yeah, that's the feeling that comes after. I don't know if it's negative or positive, but it's just like I wasted so much time not doing this. Now it's all I want to do.
Yep. And you're right. It gives you energy, right? Like, there's a joke. One of my friends, his name's Craig. He said, "I love whiteboarding." Right. So that's my whiteboard back there. There's some things that if someone looked at it, it's not going to make sense.
Yeah.
But it's a
I
professional sport, whiteboarding, but it gives me energy. Like,
is it.
I could do it
I
for 2 hours
There's
long.
a quote that resonates for both of you and what we're talking about right now. It's I don't it's, man, I'm gonna slaughter it, but basically it's we don't make time for other things. It's written on my phone and I don't want to scroll through it, but it's what it's describing is that we don't make time for everything else. We make time for we don't make time for the passion. We make time for everything else around it, basically.
Hmm.
Because it's like it's just a reverse priority type thing. You know what I mean? It's just like um I don't make time for filmmaking. That's gonna come regardless. Everything else I make time for around it because I don't want to give up my time. You know what I mean? Like if I have a spare second, I'm gonna work on a video or do something creative and stuff like that. And
Yep.
then I make time for like if somebody wants to go for dinner and stuff like that because that comes later. You know what I mean? It's just like that for a long time, and it could still very well be that way. That it's at the top of my priority list because it allows me to do everything else I want to do in life. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I'm the time investing guy, right? So,
Yeah. Oh, you no, no, no. You're the time wizard. You forgot your title already.
yeah, yeah. But essentially, you got to put those important things in first. It's the same idea as like Parkinson's law, right? The more you have, the more you spend. If you don't allot those things in,
Mm,
those important things are usually the ones we don't see an instant payout of.
yeah, I think
Whereas when we work for money, we see money right away. But what am I seeing when I spend 3 hours having coffee with someone?
it's true. I think if there's one thing that people could maybe learn about life, and I don't think I have this figured out myself, but figuring out what currencies are important to you. Because when I was saying yes to everything out there in the world, I wasn't going to places knowing that I was gonna do a video for them and getting paid, right? For me at the time, currency was travel. So it's like if they allowed me to travel, I my cup's full. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And so as that kind of grew into a business, um, I wanted things to cover the travel end because that was my biggest priority. So if I did a video for somebody and say they didn't pay me money, but they paid me in travel, they paid for my ticket, they paid for my hotel, whatever it is, or they gave me an opportunity, a story or an experience that is once in a lifetime or very unique, that is way more valuable than money because even if I got the money's going towards that sort of thing anyways. You know what I mean? So I've quickly learned that travel was a currency that I wanted. Opportunity was a currency that was really important to me, and just allowing myself to have control over my time. So if I could do a job where I was in control of how long it would take to edit or shoot something, I'm great. I don't have anyone breathing down my neck or anything like that. So these were all things that I learned because before all of that, money was the end all be all.
Right. Yeah. And you chased this fulfillment, you chased the passions, and I'm sure money followed. But before you're chasing the money, and
Oh, yeah,
you
yeah.
didn't have
That's
this fulfillment, I'm sure.
yeah. I've always kind of preached working backwards from the big picture. If you set out to make money making videos or whatever your craft is, it's very difficult to make it because I know for a fact I'm gonna make videos until I die, and I would happily make videos if I didn't get paid for it. But it's one of those life things that it needs to happen. But I just know that there's so much comfort in knowing that if the money was ever taken away, I would still have so much joy doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's pretty cool to hear. But the joy you get from it is telling the story through video, correct?
Yeah, I think it's I mean it's a lot. I can speak a lot of different directions about this, but my big thing was if I can do it, anybody can do it. You know what I mean? Like I think a lot of people, it's getting less popular, the mindset where travel is really difficult to achieve. It's really expensive. It's unattainable. I can't do it myself. You know what I mean? Like I can't. And um, what I want to kind of put out there is just like, I'm just your everyday small town kid. Like I grew up in, like I still feel like a nobody with nothing. And if I can figure out a way, you for sure can, because like I just I'm just a believer that you just have to kind of go for it, or at least shift your perspective to kind of to uh to see things differently. That was my biggest problem. Nothing really changed about my life besides the idea of how I see things. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And you took the action, like you took the steps, and that, I'm sure that mindset slowly shifted as you took another step. And you probably changed your language too. Instead of saying, I can't do this or I don't want to do this, you said, maybe what if? Or
Speaking of that, you just reminded me another one on my 10 list that I wanted to change. I didn't want to swear anymore.
so
I
like
used to swear a
actually
lot.
a language thing.
Yeah, I wanted to I mean, I don't think anything's wrong with swearing. It's just like I used to swear a lot, but I also felt like it was unnecessary. There was no intention. And I feel like if you're gonna become someone who maybe wants to tell stories or get an idea across really strongly, you should have the control not to swear when you don't want to swear. You know what I mean? It would just slip out for me. So that was a really hard one for me. But yes, my vocabulary changed. My 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 speech changed. I just like I used to be very negative, so that would come out in a lot of different ways. You know what I mean? Sometimes you don't even know you're being negative, but um, it was just really important for me to change my self-talk because at the end of the day, that's what was holding me back. What I was telling myself.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. I just realized that we're gonna have to have like, you on for like 4 more podcasts.
Oh, maybe I don't know. I don't know if anybody wants to listen to me ramble for that much, but
Well,
it's
we
a
haven't
certain.
even touched you creating a YouTube channel for helping create
Mm,
for
for,
the mountain.
that's right. Yeah, yeah, I did. Yeah. So a big part of what I wanted to do, kind of touching on purpose again, is that I realized through the vehicle of filmmaking and traveling, I wanted to help other people. This is a very new thing for me because I would describe myself as someone that's really selfish. And filmmaking's given me a gift where I want to give to other people in the way that, yeah, I can obviously make videos for people, but also I get to meet people and hear their dreams and hear their stories and stuff. And if I can bring them on along for the journey or their adventure or the job, and it gets them closer to whatever they're wanting out of life, that brings so much joy to me and stuff like that. So I feel like helping people build their own thing just gives me almost a, maybe I don't know where it fits on the scale, but like it brings me a lot of mm, fulfillment helping people how to build things. So when I was working with Thor in Iceland, Hafthor Bjornsson, I was helping him build his YouTube channel, his website, his media, and stuff like that. I found it really rewarding to help somebody build their brand, their vision, their empire, you know, and I learned a lot of skills in the process. I got to think differently because I'm used to creating for myself or with me as the brand kind of thing. And to kind of sit down with people and be like, hey, what's your brand? What's your story? How do we do this better? Who do you want to talk? You know what I mean? You're asking questions in marketing that you would learn in a classroom, but you're learning it on the ground level, you know?
Yep.
And then I did that enough times with enough clients where I'm just like, well, I didn't even realize it. People would just ask me things where if I knew how to do something, I'd be like, I do know how to do that. And you do that enough times, and then you're like, and then they're like, oh, so you're this. I'm like, oh, I never thought of myself with that title before. They're like, well, you know how to do it, so you're kind of that.
You're
So I was like,
labeled now.
yeah, I guess so. So I was just like, wow, I guess I might know marketing and strategy a little bit. I would never take those titles because I don't feel like I deserve them, but I've certainly helped people build strategy and marketing. But yeah, working with him was great. Aside from all the things I learned, it was just funny to be around that fitness industry because it's on. Would you agree? It's on the extreme end of the scale, strongman.
Well, yes. I mean,
He's a 440-pound man, and I'm him and I look like, who would be a good comparison? Like Donkey and Shrek. Like we look like like we were the most polarizing humans to the fullest, and we got along so well because again, he was just somebody that was so focused on his vision and his goals, and so was I, and they just happened for some strange reason to align in that part of my life. And I helped him with media and the things that I learned to grow in my skill set to help him build his brand. And
yeah,
it allowed me to live in Iceland. He gave me the currency of travel. He actually gave me my own place, my own car. He like he treated me really well. Like I felt like Iceland royalty for a long time, and so I'm so grateful for the opportunity. But that's a perfect example that he was willing to give me way more value than just money.
yeah, yeah. We get so caught up on money being the only value we can give, right? When
Yeah,
our expertise, our time, our
yeah,
ears.
yeah. And one thing that I really valued about him that I learned was that when I first met him, he was training for Iceland's Strongest Man, which is usually a cakewalk for him because he's won the title 10 straight times now. But seeing somebody compete at that level and how they train is pretty amazing because I mean, at that level of athlete training, you probably see a lot of consistencies and common themes, but uh, with strongman, there's a couple different factors because it's so hard on your body, right? It's
Yeah,
just like it's wear and tear, and it's just like you can't train like that year round; it'll kill a man. So seeing how disciplined he was, how patient he was, how strategic he was, and how he treated his program and his body and his especially his rest days was really inspiring because it really teaches you that in order to be great at something, you don't need to do it 24/7. You know what I mean? Like the rest days are just as important as the grinding
yeah,
hours.
yeah,
So I learned that from him by just watching and asking him questions as well.
yeah. It's not about how hard you can work out; it's about how well you can recover.
It's totally it. He's been like for the most part injury free for like a 10-year career, right? So that's
That's
pretty
amazing.
remarkable.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, that's pretty cool. And as you're talking, like talking about helping people build their dreams and create, and that's why we align so closely too. Is like
Mm.
that's what I get excited about, creating and then helping people create. And
Sometimes I feel like with you and me, it's like tag. It's like, hey, let me build your dream. Like, no, let me build your dream. No, you know what I mean? It's like,
yeah, yeah. But this has been fantastic. There's so much more we could go
yeah,
into, but I'm going to
cool.
ask you, unless you had something else to add before I ask you.
No, if you've got questions, let's do questions because I feel like I've been rambling and I feel bad for just kind of going on a
Oh,
rant.
this is what we're here for. That's a awesome story. If it inspires one person, right? If it impacts one person, helps
That's
one
always the
person,
goal. Just
yeah,
one.
just
Just one.
one. Um, Anthony, name one thing on your bucket list. So, I mean, you obviously don't do things that scare you or aspire to much. So, no, just kidding.
No, no, it's pretty low down there. I would like to. I I would. I don't even have a bucket list. I've never even heard the term. Can you educate me on what a
Yeah.
bucket list is? One thing on my bucket list. One thing or the highest thing?
Let's say, like, you're a big dreamer, obviously. The
Hmm.
biggest thing, the
Okay.
scariest thing.
Yeah. I mean, they break into categories. It breaks into physical, professional, personal, all these things. But the
Let's
one I
do
will go
physical.
with,
Oh,
sorry?
go ahead. You go ahead. You're going to say,
No, I was gonna go with the physical one anyways. Is that what you're saying?
yep.
Yeah. So in the process of conquering my fears in New Zealand, after that skydive, I fell in love with it, as I kind of spoke in the story there. And after that, because I didn't have video in my life yet, I wasn't making films at that time. I was like, I want to become a skydive instructor. I want to give people this experience that I just felt. I feel like Superman, and I want to give other people that. So, some at the same time I was getting my job with Aston Martin for the first time, I was forced to make a decision. I was at a fork in the road, and I was like, do I go skydive or do I go filmmaking? And I mean, 4 years later, spoiler alert, I chose filmmaking. But um, skydiving is something that's always just been burning inside of me, because I said I was going to do it so many years ago and I want to. And skydiving is not the end goal. That's not the big dreamer one. It's get my skydive license, do all the jumps that I need legally in the country that I do it to work myself up the ranks and stuff like that, to wingsuit. I want to do the scariest form of flying. The best, I think that's like the craziest way a human can literally fly. Like skydiving is cool and base jumping is cool and all these things, but wingsuiting, when you can just feel the air going through the suit and you can carve in the air and you
Yeah.
just jump off a cliff. And how cool is that, where you just like hike, like I'm just gonna do a backcountry hike, it's gonna take me 4 days to get to the summit, and then I'm just gonna just run off, and there's just like 4 people having a picnic up there, and they're like, oh, this guy
See
is
you
crazy.
later.
Yeah.
That's an awesome goal. And then I think we chatted about this off the episode a couple weeks ago. And
Mm.
then I think I challenged you, was like, well, just do it then, right?
Yeah, it's so straining on my resources, time and stuff like that, you know what I mean? Like it's a very big financial and time endeavor,
Yeah.
and I'm not making excuses. It's just like I want to give it the chapter that it deserves, because not only am I going to pursue this license and do all these things, I want to document it. I want to have fun
Yeah.
with it. I want to really indulge. I don't want to rush through all the stages and be like, all right, got it, got my piece of paper, you know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like,
So what's your Netflix documentary title called then? Because obviously it's going to go on Netflix.
oh goodness. Yeah, that's a tough one for me, because I have the burden of being a minimalist. So I can't do titles that are like, well, the year was 1992 and I was born, and you know what I mean, I can't. My brain speaks in long titles, but like what I love is trying to
Carving through the sky. There you go.
carving. That's even that's too long. I need like a one syllable word. You know what I mean? But you can't do it, but without sounding too generic at least. But I would say the big overarching theme for this story and just kind of how things have unfolded in the last 5 years, it's it's been about kind of I don't know, like I really like the word of just like redeeming or redemption and stuff
Mm,
like that, because like that's kind of been the internal battle with myself.
love
And
it.
I feel like everything that I've done has been trying to just find that peace or that forgiveness for myself, that for, redemption factor in my identity. But I think so. I think that would be it. Somewhere, one of those, somewhere in there. Yeah, we'll go with that.
Cool. We'll look forward to seeing it in 2027.
Oh goodness, yeah.
The goal is to help people. If you could give one piece of wisdom or advice to someone,
Mhm.
what would that be?
Yeah, I think I kind of just sprinkled it in there in the middle of our chat there, but I think a lot of the times we all try to find our answers by adding. You know what I mean? We think we're happiness will be with another job or more money or this person or that place, and buying things and acquiring things. But for me, in my experience in life, I've just found the most joy in finding things to remove out of my life, because I feel like living with basically 50 pounds of things in my life that belong to me, having less allows me to have a lot more. I mean, it's
Mm,
said in cliche, but I mean, it's very easy to know what you own and what you're capable of when you can see all the things that you have.
yeah.
And it's really hard to see what you have when you have a lot of things, whether it's people or materials and stuff like that. So my advice is that if you're trying to find something about yourself or something in life, don't try adding, try subtracting.
Mm.
Just remove some stuff.
Add and not subtract. There you go. What is the most impactful thing in a positive way someone has said or done for you?
Yeah, I mean, is it cheating to go back to the beginning of the story where, I mean, there wasn't like a, a real life line or quote from it, but my friend who just kind of showed me it was possible. That's a really important thing for a dreamer to have, because dreaming is just dreaming when it's not, when you don't do anything about it, right? So in order to kind of, in my wildest dreams, like to have a supercar in New Zealand with a group of friends, like who would think that's reality? You know what I mean?
Yep.
So to just go for it and say it was possible, like, you know what I mean? Like that's the best form of, um, I was right. You know what I mean? Like pointing in my face, I told you so kind of thing. It's just like,
Right.
that's the best I told you so you could have. It's just like, it was possible. So for me, that triggered everything. That was the foundation of my work, the foundation of my mind. That is possible. And it burns a hole in my soul when I hear people say I can't or it's impossible. I just hate it. Like I just hate's a strong word, but I literally hate it because I will obsessively go out of my way to show people that it's not impossible.
So be careful, everyone. Don't say it around Anthony. Now you
Oh,
know.
I know. I'm just gonna get spammed with comments and stuff. No, it would drive me nuts. It keeps me up at night, but that's my answer.
Well, it
That's a great
stops.
question.
It stops you from moving, right? It
Yeah,
stops even the
I
ability of it being a possibility.
it just bothers me to know that most of the roadblocks in life are kind of like man-made in a way. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like we put ourselves in front of these barricades and barriers, and sometimes other people are doing it. Yeah, and that sucks. Yes, but more often than not, I just feel like, at least for me in my experience, most of the stuff that was holding me back was just my crappy perspective.
Yeah. You've said that word a lot in here, clarity and perspective.
Crappy. Oh yeah.
And I think that's a big thing with this whole year too, is getting perspective and clarity on
I
what's
think
important.
I think so. I think a lot of people are finding out that there's been a lot of blessings in these moments of crisis, and some people are even feeling guilty for having a good 2020 year. You know what I mean? Because
Mm.
it's kind of like the trend of media to be like, it's cool to have a terrible 2020 year. You know what I mean? Like we're all doing it. Let's all talk about it. That's fine. I mean, expressing and finding common ground over something is cool, but I mean, you don't have to just accept you had a terrible year because everyone else was. You can choose to focus on the good, and I mean, there's still time left. You'd be surprised what you can do in 30 days, and the year's not over. So I mean, it's just a shift in perspective, and a lot of that comes from the kind of people you surround yourself with as well.
Yep. Yeah. A lot of common themes in these podcasts, but the average of 5, who are you spending your time with? Who are you
True.
spending your time with? What are you filling your ears with, your eyes with? Um, right. And where are you investing your time?
Yeah, I should just make my average of 5 people just like 5 dogs. That would be just like the best energy
They're the
ever.
best, right? They're always happy to see you. They always want
Yeah,
adventure.
yeah, it's the famous quote: "Be the person your dog thinks you are."
Yeah, exactly. Sorry, Duke. Trying hard.
Yeah.
Where can we find you on Insta?
Oh, I was gonna give you my address and everything, but on Insta, it's my name, Anthony K Do Do, and that's kind of the only platform I use because I don't want to give myself any other excuses to have screen time. So I don't use Twitter, I don't use Facebook, I don't use anything. I just use Instagram, and I love meeting new people and just seeing other people's work and creativity and stuff like that. So the platform is beautiful. You just have to be really intentional with it, but that's the only place you can find me basically. And email.
Email on a piece of white paper that just says
Yeah.
Anthony Gold that you'll write in after.
Yeah, you can basically find me at most local coffee shops wherever I am, because that's kind of my office. I don't have 4 walls that I call my own, because I live out of literally 2 bags, and I love going to coffee shops because it forces me to like go somewhere, like there's intention behind it. But more often than not, you're having little interactions with people that are just wonderful, whether it's the person making you coffee or
Yep.
whatever it is. It's just it just puts you out there. So I love coffee shops.
Yeah, and that's my big takeaway from this one is don't underestimate the value of a genuinely curious conversation.
Yeah, that's a big one, because I think our egos tell us that we know more, we don't need to learn from that person. But if you can somehow just kind of have that childlike curiosity for life again, you will just learn so much, and life will become so much more enjoyable because there's something to learn from everybody.
Yep. Awesome. I was trying to prolong this because I like chatting, but
Dude, I would do this forever, but yeah, I'm with you. Next time.
appreciate your time, Anthony.
Thank you for having me.
Check you later.